Okay, so I feel like it's that time of year, especially for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, where I just want to cozy up in my bed or on my couch with a book and a blanket and just feel all of the vibes. Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, The Story Ain't Over. Today, I'm going to be giving you a bunch of cozy book recs that you can read for the next few months over this very cold winter. I feel like I've done a couple videos like this before where I talk about winter book recs, so this is definitely more of like cozy book recs. You could read these whenever you want to feel cozy, and especially during these cold months in the Northern Hemisphere in December, January, and February, I would say. March is also like a good month to read these, but I feel like March is when I want to get into springtime. You may notice I'm wearing these very fabulous pajamas that look super cozy, and these were sent to me by CozyEarth, so thank you to them for sponsoring this video. I'll talk about them in a little bit. For this video, I've got 4 different categories of books. Most of them involve some sort of magic or fantasy element because that's just what I like to read, but also I feel like this is a magical time of the year, and especially when it's cold out and when you're kind of feeling the seasonal depression, I think you really want to feel some of the magic in the world. So that's how I feel. So the first category will be full-on fantasies. The second category is sort of historical fantasies. The third category is sort of cozy, thrillery, dark reads that are set in our modern day or, you know, close to our modern day. And then the fourth category is a couple books that I actually haven't read yet, but I think are gonna be super cozy and I wanna let you know about them. Without further ado, my number 1 cozy rec in this first category of fantasy books is, of course, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I recommend this book all the time when I'm thinking of cozy books or winter book recs because in my mind, this is just that book to me. This is a beautifully written and dreamy YA fantasy. You will walk into it and just fall into a different world. It really does feel like that. And one really big element to the book is actually dreams and what happens in dreams and like making dreams a reality. And I think that aspect really adds to the cozy element and also just the magical element of it. The main character of this book is Laszlo Strange, who is a war orphan and a librarian, and he has been obsessed with the idea of this lost city called Weep. It wasn't originally called Weep. Its real name was Lost to Magic, and so everyone just calls it Weep. And for as long as he can remember, he's been in search of this city and, you know, wanting to learn more about it. And when a delegation from the lost city of Weep comes to his small town, he is like fully blown away, and they've come because they have a problem in their city and they are collecting different experts in different areas of expertise to come and help them with this problem. And with all of this mystery going on, Laszlo decides to leave with this delegation because he doesn't really have anything holding him back, and he finds some mysterious and magical things when he gets there. One aspect of this book is there's multiple characters with different magical abilities, and I think that added to the story overall. And there's also this deep sense of mystery and trying to figure out what is actually going on in Weep, which I think adds to the coziness of the book. So if you're looking for a really beautifully written, dreamy fantasy, this is definitely the one to pick up. The next book is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is another like full-on fantasy. This one is more based in Greek mythology, so if you're into that, this is a really great one to read. And the reason I picked this one out of Madeline Miller's other books is because I feel like this one feels a little bit more cozy. This one follows Circe throughout her life, or most of her life, as she goes through different romantic relationships and sort of different experiences, I would say. And for most of it, she is sort of isolated, which I think adds to sort of the loneliness aspect of this book, which can be very relatable during these months of the year. And I think it adds to the coziness of the book. I think you just want to curl up and follow Circe's story. This is definitely a book with more vibes than plot, so bear that in mind. And I do think that that is a type of book that might be fun to read during this time of year and to feel all cozy because you're just sort of following the vibes as you go along. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with Circe and her story, she's a character, a goddess slash like evil witch type character from the Odyssey, and she encounters Odysseus along his journey. And there's definitely some like awful connotations to her character, and she's seen as this character who like curses men and turns them into pigs. And so this book is more of a feminist take on the story and tells her side of it. Now, before I tell you about the third book in this fantasy category, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is CozyEarth. So CozyEarth was kind enough to send me these wonderful pajamas that are honestly the coziest thing on the planet, and I was like, this is perfect for this video. CozyEarth is a luxury bedding and loungewear brand, and they make these wonderful pajamas, and multiple of their other products have also been on Oprah's favorite things list for like multiple years now. And when they decided to send me their pajamas, I was so excited because I've really been into loungewear recently and just like chilling in more comfortable clothes because I work from home. And I honestly just feel like I'm sleeping on a cloud because these are just so comfy and they don't even feel like you're wearing pajamas. They don't feel scratchy at all, and they're just so soft. All of their products are ethically produced, and they're also machine washable. I think it's really hard to find durable products that still stay the same after multiple washes, especially when it comes to like pilling and that kind of thing. But these ones do not, let me tell you, and they are still just as amazing after multiple washes. And of course, I have a promo code for all of you today. So if you use my code JEN-nah-nee30, you can get 30% off your CozyEarth purchase. So you can go grab these pajamas like me or any of their other products on their website and grab 30% off with my code JEN-nah-nee30. Use the link in my description, go click it. It really helps me out when you guys use those links or codes. And thank you so much to CozyEarth for sponsoring this video. Alrighty, the last book in this fantasy category is Shadow and Bone by Lee Bardugo. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love this series, and I'm so glad that more people are discovering it after the show came out, even though a lot of you are slandering it and saying that the show is better, which I will agree to disagree because I love the books in so many ways, and I think they have some aspects to them that the show doesn't. But irregardless of that, I do think that the first book in this series is especially fun to read during the winter time and for some cozy vibes because it is mainly set in the winter. Although there's like a middle and like beginning part that's in different seasons, the like second half of the book is mainly in the winter, and there's an aspect of them traveling through some wintry areas, and so that makes it really cozy in my mind, I think, because you're just like in the mindset of the characters like going through this cold area, and there's some really like awesome scenes that just happen in the cold, and so I just love it for that reason. And whenever I think of the winter, I actually think of this book. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Shadow and Bone, it follows a main character named Alina Starkove, and it is set in this fantasy world, and she has been an orphan and has grown up with her best friend Mal for most of her life in the orphanage that they grew up in. And in this world, there are people called Grisha, who are people with like these magical abilities, and there's different kinds of them. And when you are a child, the Grisha testers come around and test if you are one of them. And neither Mal nor Alina made it into this test and, you know, went off to the Grisha school. But when something happens at the beginning of this book, Alina discovers that she is a Grisha, and there's a great love triangle, and there's just lots of magical things, and it's really a story about Alina's journey and her discovering herself. I personally devoured these books when I first read them in high school, so I definitely think they are a quick and fun read for the winter time. Alrighty, moving on to sort of the historical fantasies that I think are really cozy and fun to read during this time of year. I have The Kingdom of Vak by Marie Lu. So this one I think I read early in 2020 or 2021 when it came out, and it was in the winter, and it was honestly the perfect thing to pick up around that time. This book is a historical fiction, but it's also got lots of fantasy elements, and in particular it follows the life of Nannerl, who is the sister of Mozart, and she has sort of grown up in his shadow for most of her life, even though she also possesses a significant musical talent, but everyone has been focused on her younger brother. This is a story of her sort of growing up in this situation and then also encountering a magical world and also a magical person. And this is actually based off of stories that the actual figures in history used to tell each other in their carriage rides between performances, and that's where Marie Lu got the idea. So this fictional world of the Kingdom of Vak appears in this book as like a real thing, and you're seeing it sort of bleed into Nannerl's life. Overall, it's just a gorgeous book, and it's definitely one that's like more vibes, less plot, and it's one of the very few all vibes, no plot books that I love to death. So if you're looking for something historical but also magical, and if you're looking for some beautiful writing, then I would definitely check this one out. The next book is one that I think is definitely cozy because it's got historical elements to it, but it's also got a really big theme of love, and that book is Lovely War by Julie Berry. So this book is set, I think, during World War I, and it follows 4 different characters from different walks of life, and you are seeing their stories sort of connect over the course of this war and how all of them are falling in love. And the entire story is actually narrated by the goddess Aphrodite, who, if you don't know, is the Greek goddess of love. And she's narrating this story to actually her husband Hephaestus and also her lover Ares. And she's trying to explain what love really means. And she's doing that by talking about these four characters and their love stories. And I think it's just such a beautifully told story and also funny at times, but it's definitely cozy in the sense that you are seeing their lives over a long period of time and you're seeing how things go. It's also got the war element and it just makes it slightly more romantic and heartbreaking and that kind of thing, but it does deliver on that love aspect as well. So it's definitely one that will hit you in the feels like a cheesy Christmas movie, but not quite so cheesy. And it'll definitely get you thinking about love, life, and death. The next book is a popular one that I definitely think many people will find as a cozy book, and that one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I absolutely loved this book when it first came out, and while I do think that it has some flaws, the fact that Addie never meets a single person of color is astounding to me, but irregardless of that, I do think it is quite a beautiful story about one woman's journey and the loves that she finds along the way. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this book, it basically follows this one woman named Addie LaRue, and she is French. She's from this small town in France and from the 1700s. And during that time, she is a woman who just wanted more out of life than, getting married and having kids and just being forced into this lifestyle. And she happens to make a deal with the devil and is cursed to live an immortal life but be forgotten by everyone she meets. And it's this fascinating sort of concept that carries her through multiple hundreds of years as she is going through life forgotten by so many people and falling in love with people who will never remember her. And at last, in our current present day, she finds someone who actually starts to remember her. And this is where the devil who cursed her is sort of closing in. And the story is told both in the current timeline when she's dealing with this whole situation and also with flashbacks to her past and the different people that she fell in love with and the different experiences that she had over these hundreds of years. And it's just this super interesting story of her just going through this immortal, lonely life. And I feel like it's just a really cozy read because you are following her journey throughout hundreds of years. It's got this historical element, it's got that loneliness to it, but it's also got that touch of magic that makes it so wondrous. And you just want Addie to be remembered and you just want the best for her by the end. And I think that's what makes it such a compelling read. Although it is a bit of a slower read because you are going through these different parts in history and her life, I do think by the end you're just so invested in Addie's story. This one is definitely more of a all vibes, no plot book. It doesn't really get any plot until the end of the book when things start to ramp up, but I do think the journey is part of the beauty of it and part of the point of the book. You are following her through her journey, and that is what takes her to the end. Alrighty, next up I have the books that are set in our modern day. A couple of these are sort of mystery thrillers, and then one of them is sort of a fictional memoir character journey. So the fictional memoir character journey is Days of Distraction by Alexandra Chang. I think I read this one last winter or the winter before, and it definitely encompassed those cozy wintry vibes because part of this book is actually set in the winter as well. But essentially this is just this moving contemporary fiction that follows this one woman's life, and you're following her during a period of her life that is quite tumultuous and is involving a move across the country and leaving a toxic job and dealing with a relationship that she's not quite sure of. And although it is not sort of plot driven, it's definitely more vibes. You are seeing sort of the regular day-to-day life that makes life so hard. I think this book really delves into the feeling of depression, and it also dramatizes very real moments in our real world that I think I've just never seen done on page before, conversations that I've seen in workplaces that are slightly racist, or situations with relationships, or situations to do with our broader world that I think never really get talked about Again, this is more of a like all vibes, no plot book, which I think is what makes it sort of this cozy read for this time of year. It takes you through her journey and her mental state, and I think it's very relatable along the way, especially if you're someone who feels like the seasonal depression around this time of year. So overall, a really fantastic book with like some great themes, but I definitely think it's not one to go into thinking that you're gonna, you know, see XYZ happen. You just gotta go into it and experience it. Another aspect of this book is that it's told in these little vignettes. So it's sort of meandering and all over the place at some points, but I think that's part of the journey and like the mental state of the character. Alrighty, next I have one of the thrillers, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I'm honestly not the biggest Colleen Hoover fan. I do enjoy her books, but this one I think in particular, while it wasn't my favorite, it is a very fun book to read during this time of year and as like a cozy book. I think I remember reading this one actually last December or like this January, so it was definitely in the winter, and I remember just like curling up and wanting to devour the whole story because it is that book that just sucks you in and makes you want to get to the end. I think for this time of year, it's fun to have these like meandering stories that are just cozy to curl up with, but I think this time of year is also just great for those books that make you want to devour them and make you want to just sit there and read for hours on end and finish the book. So I feel like this book is definitely that. Basically, it follows our main character, Lowen Ashley, who is a struggling writer, and she gets this insane job offer from this man named Jeremy Crawford, who is the husband to this woman named Verity Crawford, who happens to be this super successful writer with this multi-book series. And so Jeremy hires Lowen to finish off Verity's thriller series and, you know, give the fans a satisfying end, because Verity has been in a terrible accident and she's no longer able to finish it herself. And so from there, Lowen is like invited to their home to get a sense of Verity's notes and like figure out what she was planning for the series. But amidst that, she actually stumbles upon this secret manuscript that no one knows about that Verity had been writing, and it seems to be some sort of autobiography memoir, and it talks about her relationship with her husband, who Lowen happens to have some feelings for now. I think this book happens to capture a lot of what Colleen Hoover does well in her romances, which is like the sense of mystery and also like big reveals. And the ending for this one is definitely a fun one that leaves you thinking a lot, but I think overall it's just that book that sucks you in and makes you want to keep flipping the pages, and for that reason it's just a lot of fun. Alrighty, the last book in this category of books is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I'm actually currently in the middle of reading this one in December, and it's definitely giving me all of the cozy vibes, partly because this is a dark academia and it's got that academic vibe to it, but also like the mystery of a dark academia. But I think this one in particular, as opposed to some of the other ones that I've read, is that this one's got that like loneliness aspect and like that meandering rumination on life that is sort of missing from some of the other dark academias that I've read. Although it has been very slow going for me as I've been reading this over the past few weeks, I do think there's something about the way that it's narrated. It's in first person and the character is telling their story and how things have all gone wrong from back when they were in university. I do think that his mental state and the way that he's feeling is very relatable, especially during this time when a lot of people are going through seasonal depression. And for that reason, I feel like it's just a really fun one to read during this time of year when you're just like being in a more contemplative mood and, you know, staying indoors more often. And I find myself like underlining so many lines in this book as I've been reading because they're just so beautifully written and just really hit you hard. So yeah, definitely a dense one and not certainly for everybody, but I do think that it is a really cozy read for this time of year. Alrighty, and then the final category of books that I have for this video is just a couple books that I haven't yet read, but that I think will be super cozy for this time of year. Both of these seem to be sort of high fantasy, low stakes type of books. They both have magical elements to them and involve sort of very low stakes, like it's not about saving the world. So the first one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. This one, it seems like it's a really cute sort of fantasy romance. It follows our main character Mika Moon, who is one of the few witches in Britain, and she has been an orphan and sort of on her own for most of her life. But she does have an online account where she posts about being a witch. And so I think someone finds her through this, and she is invited to this place called the Nowhere House. And Nowhere House is this like remote place that teaches young witches how to control their magic. And so Mika is invited to sort of teach a few of these girls. And she embarks on this like new journey and finds this new family. And she also meets the very handsome and prickly librarian of Nowhere House named Jamie. From there, it just seems like it's gonna be a really cute romance with like sort of fantasy elements going on. And it just sounds like the perfect thing that I want to curl up with this winter. And then the next book that I have, and the final book on this video, is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This book I've been hearing so many things about. It was super popular on TikTok when it was like self-published, and it's recently been traditionally published by Tor, and they were kind enough to send me this copy, so thank you so much to them. But I am so excited to read this one because this is literally like high fantasy, low stakes. It follows a orc, a battle-weary orc who has been like a bounty hunter and like fighting for most of her life, and her name's Viv. And she decides that she's done with this lifestyle and wants to open up a coffee shop in her like city, and this is like a whole fantasy world. But of course she has some rivals from her old life that will stand in the way of her success. And I believe this book also features a sapphic romance, which I'm super excited for because I feel like it's just gonna be so freaking cute with this like coffee shop situation, but also the fact that it's like a fantasy world. And I feel like I have been wanting a fantasy like this that is like completely low stakes for so long, and I've never really seen it come about. Like I've seen romances with a fantasy element, but I do think I've never really seen like a full-on high fantasy alternate world with very low stakes. So I'm just excited to see how this one goes. If you have read either of these books, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches or Legends and Lattes, definitely let me know what you thought of them. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you have read any of the other books I recommended on this video and what you thought of them, and if there are any other books that you think would be great as cozy book recs for the other people watching here today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I love recommending books to you guys, and let me know if there's any other recommendations videos that you'd like for the next few months. And if you're hoping to get more regular updates on my reading and what I'm doing in my life, then definitely go check out my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and TikTok in the description down below. Thank you so much to CozyEarth for sponsoring today's video. You guys should definitely go use my code Jananie30 to grab 30% off your purchase. With all that said, I will see you in my next video, and please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!